I'm Felicia Shakiba, and this is CPO Playbook, where we solve a business challenge in every episode.
Kip,
Yes.
thanks so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you here. It's this challenge that we're talking about today is a question that we get a lot from our listeners about how to be confident. And I don't think there's a better person to talk about this with than you.
Well, you're too kind. Well, it's an honor. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I actually read 2 books recently by the same author, Vanessa Van Edwards. One is called Captivate, and the other is called Cues. I think Cues is her latest book. But what she talks about in both those books is charisma, and which is something that is so hard for people to define. They kind of think you think you know it when you see it, but like when you ask someone, how do you define charisma? It's really hard. But how she defines it in both of these books, which I think is brilliant, and everyone I've shared it with has said the same thing. It's a balance of competence, like you're competent, you know what you're talking about, and warmth. Just being a warm person, a warm, just warmth in how you communicate. And she talks a lot about just different cues of competence to show people that you're competent and then to show warmth. And no one has a perfect balance, and it, ebbs and flows over time, but
Yeah.
you can be strong in both warmth and competence. You're a charismatic person. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a start to like the conversation of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. I think charisma plays a big part of that. But to kind of lay the foundation,
Sure.
why do you think you're an executive search professional and you have seen executives come in and out of the interviewing process? They might have just been laid off. They might have just come from a really toxic culture looking for something new. Why do you think confidence is such a quiet struggle, even for highly accomplished executives?
Everybody has this, imposter syndrome. Everybody, no matter, and I've talked to people, at the top of their game, billionaires, young people coming out of college, and everyone kind of has this. And the more you level up and move higher and higher in your career and more complicated things, more interesting things, people have this imposter syndrome. But the truth is, everybody has that. No matter what your background, no matter what you've achieved, everybody in the back of their head has that. And so I think the people that are confident or display confidence, you just get comfortable with that, like this imposter syndrome. And the more you're exposed to other people and maybe you're in circles of CEO roundtables, so you're talking to CEOs of other companies or whatever level you're at, you're in roundtables or just having more private, intimate, personal discussions with people. You find out that everybody struggles with those same exact things. And then you become more comfortable with it. It doesn't go away necessarily, but you're just comfortable and everybody else is feeling the same thing. And it unlocks confidence or just a comfortability in having those feelings in the back of your head.
Yeah. And I think that it's a challenge, right? For everyone is what you're saying. Was there a time in your own journey where your confidence was really tested? How did that experience shape how you show up today?
It's a fantastic question. I would say the first big loss I had in life, like in a professional setting, as I was graduating from law school, I ran for the Minnesota State Senate. So I started my campaign while I was still in law school, and then studied for and took the bar exam while I was running the campaign to run for office. A lot of work. I put really all my time and energy into that and ended up losing a very close race, but lost. But that was the first super public visual loss, other than playing sports and losing a game in high school or college or things like that. But just a real public loss. and that can certainly shake your confidence. I feel like on election night, I had given it my all over the course of the campaign, and I literally like dropped in exhaustion, like once the results came. So I didn't feel this immediate like loss of confidence. I was just so tired and wiped after just kind of, hitting the campaign trail so hard. But then in the days and weeks and months that followed, um, it might have been easier to bounce back from that super public loss just because I knew I had left it all on the field, quote unquote. Like I knew I had given everything I possibly could to win that race. And, there's nothing more I could think of that I could have possibly done. I mean, I could get into all the details, but I had just really given it everything. And when you do that and you suffer losses, which if you're an entrepreneur or someone in business, you're gonna lose. And the more you lose, you get more comfortable. It's just like the confidence thing. You just become comfortable with losing, and the fear of loss doesn't ever go away, but it kind of subsides, and you just get this comfortability of the threat of loss or the fear of loss. And then you almost get to the point that you get addicted to it. It's like if you're not risking everything or just putting things on the line where you could lose, you feel like you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
Mm.
So you almost crave that, not that you want to lose, but you want to do something where there is a chance you could lose. And then that's how you learn and push through those things. And you learn so much about yourself and about business and the market and whatever it is that you're working in. You almost kind of pursue pushing things to the extreme where loss is a definite possibility.
That addiction to risk
Yeah.
and the chance of winning is
Right.
where the addiction comes from. Yeah, I can see that. How, based on what you're saying, you're saying that the exhaustion from working so hard towards that was really, that negative impact. But the positive, what you're saying is that you knew you gave it your all. There were no regrets. Is that what
Right.
I'm hearing? Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if someone, knew they didn't give it their all and they lost, like you'd have some serious regrets.
Yeah.
It's like when people talk about people on their deathbeds, usually their biggest regrets are things they didn't try rather than the things that they did and it didn't work out. Like people's regrets are, I didn't go for it. I didn't, go for that promotion or start that business or go on that vacation or, travel to that other part of the world or, ask that person out on a date or ask, whatever it is. It's the things you didn't do are the things you regret, as opposed to, as long as you're doing honest, moral, ethical, like good, positive things, you regret more where you didn't go for it.
Yeah. Not like I don't, not like I regret not stealing that piece of jewelry and
Right.
having it for a
Right.
day.
That's right.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yes, I think ethics play a big role in that. So, in your work, when you're working with leaders who are looking for senior executives and then working with senior executives who are looking for a better place to work, how does confidence or the perception of it play a decisive role in the outcome?
It's a very, very good question. I think, it depends on the role, and the function, but certainly companies, employers, founders, the person doing the hiring wants someone that's confident in whatever it is that they're going to do in the job. They don't have to be the most confident person, across the board, but you want them confident in what it is that they're going to do. If they're going to be a CFO, they're confident in finance and accounting, and you want them confident in that function. And there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. And
Yes.
sometimes you coach people that, and it's almost like it's what's the perception of the person on the other end about you, as opposed to like what your intention is. You don't, even though you might not be arrogant, you don't want to project arrogance. So people need to be self-aware and a lot of times doing like what we're doing here, doing this podcast and videoing it, if you video yourself talking about things or doing a presentation and watch it back, you can learn a lot about how you're projecting yourself that you would have never known but for watching yourself back. So that's actually a very good exercise, doing a mock interview and videotaping it, or, potential pitch or presentation to a prospective client and watching it back. And, lawyers do that all the time when they're, going to do their arguments before the court. They do mock trials and videotape them and watch it back and learn about what worked and what didn't work. And so that's a good skill set or technique to make sure you're projecting confidence in the first place and not meekness or fear. And on the flip side, dialing back arrogance if that seems to be coming across too.
We'll be right back. Back to the show.
That's a really good tip. I think that works wonders when I remember when I started doing my show, and I was so critical of myself to the point where I was spending hours and I still didn't look the part or sound the part, but I think as you gain more experience, you're confident that you can nail the next very similar experience, right? So it's about having like more similar experiences and knowing that you've been able to tackle outliers in those experiences really well. This is a funny piece of history about me, but I used to be a dancer and I used to compete globally, and it was really fun. I loved doing it. It was maybe another part of my life, but it was incredibly nerve-wracking to be on stage and nail it every time. But I remember as I performed or did my routine over and over again, I mean, it was just like muscle memory. And sometimes the floor would be slippery. Sometimes, somebody would be distracting me in the crowd. Sometimes the lights would be too bright. But as I was able to do it over and over again, I was able to just feel confident enough to say, hey, if the floor is sticky or the floor is slippery, I can still get through that. I've dealt with that before. So that's really interesting because you've done the work before, but have you done the interview many times, right? So as an executive looking to interview with multiple people and different personalities of different color and situations, doing it over and over again, what I'm hearing from you is really the key is to start practicing.
No, absolutely. And on the video thing, like full disclosure, I don't do that myself personally. Like I have a podcast like you, and I've never watched back like an episode, like after I've recorded before we've like put it out into the world. Or if I do like social media videos, I just do them and post them. So I don't follow my own advice, full disclosure, but like you should, or it's helpful to.
Men and women are different.
Yes.
Actually, women are way more critical of ourselves than men. And that's actually in another podcast that we recorded on the show with Jan in I think the beginning of season 2. But he had research that showed that women are a lot more critical of themselves than men. So it does make sense. And I wonder if there is that. Do you see that difference when you are working with senior executives, whether they're men or women, if they're more critical or not? Does that show up at all during the process?
100%. Yes. It's
really
totally true. Yes. It's men and women they're wired differently, like down to like your genetic DNA. It's just different. And you can train and learn and, as you said, practice and get better at things, but we're just wired different. And granted, there's variations, levels on men and women, but like as a general proposition, we are just wired. Men are just so much less critical of themselves than women are.
How does that show up for you? Like, I'm so curious. What does that look like to you as the recruiter?
I mean, I just doing what we do, and we talk to so many people, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, that you start to see patterns, and it's pattern recognition, and you can tell when you can almost read it on someone's face when they're feeling a certain way. And then it's just asking questions and just digging a little bit deeper and just helping them realize how they're feeling. And a lot of times it's almost therapy what we do. Like people are very, they
That's good.
share their
You
deepest
took the words out of my
yeah.
mouth.
Yeah. I mean, they share their deepest thoughts and worries and things with us. And so in some ways we don't even have to say anything. It's just being there just to listen and let them vent it. And sometimes when a person says it out loud, then they just realize for themselves how absurd that critique of themselves was. And the other thing I've heard before is, again, especially for females, is if you say out loud, or like if you think what you're thinking about yourself, like if you would have said that to your best friend, would you ever say that to your best friend, what you're thinking about yourself? And a lot of times it's no, I would never, ever. Like, so why would you say that to yourself? It's this self-talk and being in your head. And almost if you just say it out loud and hear yourself say it, you almost create this wall and separation that you can see, well, geez, I really don't believe that. What that's been spinning in my head for the last week. But now that I say it out loud, no, that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because we do coaching one-on-one. We also do coaching for women, and it is a different environment. Confidence is one of the things that we focus on. As women, we're very unsure. And, a lot of times, I mean, if you look at the statistics, and I'm not sure if I have the correct statistics in front of me at the moment, but I know that most executives are men. And I assume that you could back that up considering.
Yes.
And so it's just, I think that as women, we just feel like we're in an environment where a lot of people don't look like us. We might lead differently. We're different. We're unique to this realm. Is that acceptable? Are people going to shy away from being different, from us being different, right? But I know that in my coaching experience, when I coach women, they're usually the only one on the leadership team. And that's a little bit scary.
Sure.
And yeah, and you're just, whether you're doing something right or wrong, you're the outlier, right? You're always the outlier. So it's like, how do we work through that? So from your perspective, when you are bringing female executives through this process of looking for a leadership position, do you have different advice for them versus men, or is it pretty much the same? Or like, how do you look at like the criteria? Like when you're working with an organization, you're saying, hey, I think that this person, whether female or male, is the right fit for your role. Obviously you're not talking about the gender, but like, what are the behavioral differences or the skill sets that come out of that conversation?
Yeah. Excellent question. I would say by and large, the majority of our clients, when we're doing a search, like they want the best person, whether they're male, female, whatever their ethnicity is, I mean, any traits that someone has, they want the best person. But often they'll say, our leadership team really is mostly male. We would, if all things being equal, if we can have a female, we would prefer that, just because we don't have that, and females are underrepresented on our leadership team. So that's a great sign. We hear that and we know that, again,
That is a great sign.
we're qualifying
Yeah.
our clients just as much as they are us when they hire us. So we like to hear things like that. And it's interesting. It's a lot of teams where that's a priority, they tend to have maybe the majority of their leadership team are females. Or I just see a lot more teams where a lot of the leadership team is female, or maybe it's flipped where they're mostly female and there's a few men. I mean, it's just super interesting. But I think there definitely is that desire for most companies to have like diversity of thought on their leadership team and different perspectives.
Yes.
And it's not so much about the traditional like diversity things. It's just we want diversity of thought and different ideas and different experiences to bring to the table so that we can be better. But I do hear that a lot. We're doing a CFO search or a chief investment officer, or whatever it is, COO. All things being equal, we'd really like to have a female in this role. We want the best person possible, but all things being equal, we'd really like to have a female.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you know when someone is faking confidence? What does that look like?
It's a very, very good question. I would say to uncover that, it's asking questions and asking the second question and the third and the fourth. The deeper you dig, the more that facade of confidence starts to strip away if it's not really there. And someone can fake on the surface, but like if you really start digging in or you apply some pressure to them and they're pressure tested, it usually comes through. I will say, kind of back to one of your earlier points, as far as just how confident men or women appear, it's almost like, and this is not scientific, but there's something along these lines of if a man's 20 or 30% confident in whatever he's going to say, he'll say it, whereas a woman needs to feel 90% sure that this is correct before she'll say it. Whereas men will just they'll say it confidently if they kind of think it's true, or they kind of think they're right. Whereas a female just really needs to know she's right with almost total certainty, which is almost impossible, before she'll confidently propose something, which is really, that's probably the biggest difference that we see.
Yes. I mean, it's everything that you're saying makes so much sense. And, I think my question to you is, do you think that's from the environment reacting to men and women differently? Like, for example, if a woman says something in a meeting or wherever, right? If a female says something in an executive meeting, a man says something, the same thing. Do you think that the team responds differently to whether they're female or male?
Another good question. If I can be super honest, I'll tell you what I
Tell me.
really think about.
I want
some of these things.
honesty. No, don't sugarcoat it.
No, yeah. I think that women are harder on other women than men are on women.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I mean,
Yeah.
and there's so much talk, and you see it, on social media, but just in conversations of like female leaders wanting to lift up other female leaders, and we want to champion this and do this together. But it's almost like there's a scarcity of roles. And so as a female leader, I want to hold these people down so I can have this role. I don't know what it is, because I've never lived my life as a female.
But what's an example? Like, can you share an example of that experience that you've had that makes you believe what makes you believe that?
Just there's so much like to the original question there, like speaking, if a man says something or a woman, I think the woman would almost be more fearful of the other women in the room shooting them down or something than the men. So they're more careful in what they say. I know for 100% certainty, again, from the male perspective, that women judge each other way more than a man judges a woman, whether it's in any facet of life. Like there's just so much judgment and so much more pressure. And it's almost like I need to impress the other females in whatever way more than the men, but I don't know. It's just like this dichotomy of like, we talk about one of, I'm saying we, but as women, we want to build each other up, but yet we're the ones tearing each other down. It's so much more than men are. I mean, and I know there's bad men and some men do that, but like, I just see that contradiction so much.
I mean, I can say that in my career.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, right?
At all. I'm like,
and I'm
just doing this.
I'm just conjecturing here based on my experience.
We'll be right back. Back to the show.
But I think that there's, like, for us, we see that there's very scarce space for us as women, right? There's only one role on an executive team that a woman might get, unless you're, working possibly in makeup or fashion. You might see more women on the executive level, right? But I think that there's just the competition is more fierce between women because, it's less likely that they're going to want a male in your position when you're the only female on the team, right? They're going to men are more likely, like you said, going to want to make sure that spot that you have stays full for a woman, but there's only one spot. right? So there's maybe, or a voice. Maybe it's not a role, it's just a voice in the room. And so I just think that we have we see, not that we have, but we see the perception is that we have fewer opportunities. We have to work harder and we have to get the one spot for a woman, for a female voice to be heard.
Yeah.
But I also think that just generally speaking, we are a little cattier. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Yes.
there's a little bit of cattiness. But for the most part, that's really interesting because I always thought of it as like maybe women are less confident for what how the men might react. But no, I think you're clearly proving me wrong that it's really sometimes the women. And so what do we need to do about this? Like, let's turn the table, let's turn the page. How do we help women or just people in general, right? Because men often, they will also feel less confident in some situations. So how do we get better at being confident? I know we talked about repetition, but what's your advice? What do you think?
I would encourage people just to take risks in just like what you say or the ideas you bring to bear. And you don't need to have total certainty before you share an idea. And it helps if you have a leader and a culture in your organization that encourages people to take risks and try different things, and knowing not everything will work. And I think that's more, the larger organization gets, in some ways, there's the less space there is for innovation and thinking differently. And especially like in middle management within an organization, it has to be right, or like, whereas more, younger, more nimble entrepreneurial organizations you're just living the life of taking risk and iterating all the time. But I would just encourage people to take more risks and just share your ideas. And maybe you want to share, before you share it to the large group, share it to some people that you trust. I would encourage people to find a mentor within their organization, someone higher up or someone laterally, or someone in your role at a different organization, that you can bounce ideas off of and kind of push each other, and, iron sharpens iron to get better. I think that would be super helpful. But in some ways, I don't know, I'm in some groups and we talk about confidence being defined as keeping the promises you make to yourself. Like if you set a goal for yourself or make a promise to yourself, keep those promises to yourself and you'll be confident. And you're just kind of building a track record of like doing what you say you'll do. And when you do that over and over and over time, you become more and more confident because you've done what you said you were going to do. And you can fail or iterate, but you're moving towards this goal and trying to push yourself and stretch yourself outside of your comfort zone. Like, I think that's what builds confidence, like pushing ourselves beyond our limits and just being, and these words are thrown around, but being authentic and just being who you are. Like if you are Felicia and you are just, this is who I am, and you're not trying to hedge things or pretend that you're someone that you're not, or you believe something that you don't, it's a lot easier to be confident because you're telling the truth. This is truly who I am, what I stand for, what I believe, what I'm good at. I can be vulnerable about, things that I'm not great at. It's a lot easier to be confident when you're not trying to pretend or fake it till you make it.
Yeah. And I think also, just to add on to that point, knowing and letting other people know that you're okay with failure,
Right.
I think is also really important, because you can bring up your ideas and say, you know what, I don't know if this is going to work, but I am taking this risk to share this idea, and it could be a total bomb, but at least if I share my idea, I can fail fast. I can pivot my idea and bring others into, the conversation, which may lead eventually to a great idea. that kind of yes and from improv. I don't know if anybody knows about that,
Yes,
but
right.
that's also
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
you know about that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's a whole another episode. So, but it's being okay with failure, being super comfortable with saying, I don't know, this is my best guess. Just to add on to what you were saying, I think is this really good advice. I think mentoring is a great point. We forget about that a lot. Most people are like, well, who's going to want to mentor me? And I think if more people raise their hand to be a mentor, that I think would be helpful too.
Yeah. And I think when people have had success or they've gained wisdom over their career, they want to share it. Like you get to this point where you start to think about, legacy, and even just the smaller version of like, I want to pass on the information I have. Like most people, when they get to a certain stage, they want to help bring others up, but you have to have the courage to ask for help and not just wait for someone to come and say, hey, can I be your mentor? Find the person that you want to be, or you idolize certain parts of, who they are, and you want to learn more about that and how you can do that, and be super direct and don't beat around the bush and say, Felicia, I think your public speaking abilities are incredible. I really want to improve as a public speaker. Would you be open to mentoring me and helping me become a better public speaker? Like, instead of just kind of beating around the bush and saying, hey, can I, treat you to a cup of coffee, and just tell them why. And the more successful somebody is, the more accomplished, the more they appreciate people being very direct with them. And maybe that's another piece to being more confident, is being more direct with people and actually asking what you want to ask and saying what you want to say. And you'll just notice that, like, again, the more successful someone is, the more to the point and direct they tend to be in their communication, over the telephone or on Zoom or in person or over email. They're not writing long, drawn out emails. They just, like, it might be one line that goes right to the point of what they want to say. Because time is the most precious asset, and you want to be efficient and effective with your time. And so by being direct with people, you're showing that you respect their time, and you're telling them exactly, and being okay if they say no, like, or they say, well, I can't, today, but in, 2 weeks we can talk. You'd rather have that than just beating around the bush and make them feel like you're not appreciating their time or wasting their time.
Yeah. Well, Kip, this has been this conversation went in a totally different direction than I thought it was going to go, but it went in the right direction. So I thank you for being here.
Sure.
It is always a great pleasure for me to chat with you.
I love talking with you. Absolutely.
I love talking with you,
So
Kip.
much fun.
Well, let's do it again then.
Yes,
we'll
absolutely.
do it again soon. All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure.
If today's episode captured your interest, please consider sharing it with a friend and leaving a review. To learn more about how CPO Playbook can support you or a leader you know with executive coaching or organizational transformation, visit us at cpoplaybook.com. Your support as a subscriber means the world to us, so thank you for tuning in. I'm Felicia Shakiba. Let's connect on LinkedIn.